iHeartRadio presents Podversations, a weekly discussion with the biggest names and influencers in podcasting.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another session of the iHeartPodcast Network Speaker Series. This is one of my favorite times of the week where we get to stop down and take a second and talk to a couple creators that we have a partnership with. The excuse for getting together is podcasting. We do talk a lot about podcasting here, but we end up talking about different kinds of media, different kinds of communication, how we're getting different messages out there in the world. And these sessions have turned out to be just really cool conversations about content culture, where we are as content makers, but also as a country, as a world. Today's session is no exception. It's going to be awesome. We have partnered with a podcast called Earn Your Leisure. It's by hosts Troy Millings and Rashad Bilal. First of all, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. I'm sure there's stuff not getting done because you're hanging out with us, so I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So this podcast is sort of phenomenal, the growth that it's had. And maybe some of that at least is from your guys' backgrounds deep in education and finance, and I'll let you guys talk through that. But I think one of the coolest things in podcasting, period, right now, is that none of us started out as podcasters. Dolly didn't, I didn't. It isn't the career we decided when we were 10 or even 21 that we wanted to do or whatever. And so I think that brings a lot to the medium. I think a lot of people are making podcasts today that come from different places, whether it's I used to write books or I made TV shows or I was a financial analyst or whatever the case may be. Troy, if I could start with you, where do you come from? Like, where did you come from originally, and what sort of assets, if you will, or knowledge do you bring into podcasting from that former life or maybe parallel life now?
Yeah. So I'm an educator by trade. I was teaching in New York City for 10 plus years, and then in Westchester County for another 5. And so education is something that I've always been part of. I've been working with kids since I was 15 years old in summer camps and after school programs. And so one of the things that I decided that was important to kids was teaching financial literacy. And so I partnered with my best friend, Rashad. And I decided, look, we need to create a curriculum for kids to learn about money. We were doing a summer internship program, and they were going to get paid $500 based on their performance. But I knew that they didn't have a positive relationship with money, like most kids don't. And so we wanted to give them an idea of what money is, how it can be used as an asset, and how it can be used to share and spend. And so it started there. And still to this day, like I say that I still am an educator. I just don't do it in a school district. And my topic has changed. I used to teach health and phys ed, and now I teach finance. Because I know long-term, these are the things that people, not even just kids, but adults and children need to know, because it's a life skill that they can take on forever.
When you say kids don't have a good relationship with money, and that was one of the things that made me want to jump in and try to start to fix that. Yeah. What were you seeing? How were kids thinking about money, talking about money and finance that made you stop down?
Yeah, somebody said this to me. They're like, when you don't know what to do, you do what you know. And so we were just around kids that when they got paid, as soon as they got paid, they spent the money, right? I actually challenged a kid one time. I said, look, if you can save $100 of your check, I'll give you $100 tomorrow. And he didn't, right? Like, he couldn't have that. He needed immediate gratification from having the money and spending it, where he could have actually gained $100 by just saving it. And so that was it was a repetitive thing that we saw every paid cycle. Every 2 weeks, kids get money, they spend it every 2 weeks. Same thing. And it was like, okay, this is a cycle that's happening in our community in a small scale, but on a larger scale in the world, right? When people get money, they tend to spend it. They don't ever think about investing. They don't think about saving. And a lot of times they don't think about sharing, if at all. And so those are some of the principles that we want to implement in kids at a young age, because we know if we start at a young age, chances are that they'll hold on to some of those vital pieces of information long term. And in fact, they'll not only do it for themselves, but we saw that they started to help their parents get a better understanding of what money was.
Rashad, what about you real quick? Where's your background from? What kind of skills do you bring into podcasting?
Yeah, my background is a financial advisor. I was a financial advisor for 12 years. And so, the financial literacy aspect of it with me and Troy. He was an educator, and I was a financial advisor. So when we came together to teach kids about money, it was really, the real combination of financial literacy and, seeing the inner workings of finance and personal finance, specifically the mistakes that people make, how they don't have their financial orders in place, and things like life insurance, retirement plans. This is all things that I was dealing with for over a decade on a day-to-day basis. So that was my background before going into podcasting, being on social media. So it was kind of a natural gateway into what we do now, because it's still in line of what I started out. It's more broad range now, like more business topics, and it's more expansive. But the root of the financial literacy and investing business stuff, that's all the things that I was really familiar with and my background. So that's what I was doing before the podcast.
When you hear Troy talk about this sort of the way we think about money, instant gratification, turning money into things, into things we can buy and we think make us happy, does it feel sometimes like it's an overwhelmingly huge problem to solve? It's like, look, I can train a kid to try to invest money, but the problem is way upstream. It's just how we think about instant gratification, as opposed to being happy with maybe who you are right then and there. How did you tackle that? And maybe your answer was just, look, I'll solve the piece I can, which is financial literacy, but I'm just interested to hear you talk through that. Yeah,
mindset is extremely important. So, we make investing cool. We try to make investing fun. And we, if you are encouraged to do it, then you have the same passion for spending money that you would have for investing money. So that's something that we do naturally, but we're very conscious of doing it. And one of the reasons why our presentation is not to alienate anybody, is really to include everybody, include people that may have been left out from traditional business conversations, because a lot of times people feel like, if it's not for them, or if it's in a language that they can't understand, then they just kind of, ignore it. So I think that once people fully understand that, it's not really boring to have investments that's making money for you, it's actually exciting, and it could be just as exciting as spending money. And once they understand that and they've experienced it, then their mindset starts to change, and now their relationship with money changes, and they understand that it's not just a voucher to be used, it's actually a tool to actually make more money. So that's something that we try to, attack a lot, is the mindset aspect of it, and just kind of reframing, how we were trained to think about money.
Well, I would love to, as you guys promote in school on financial literacy, I would love to talk more about your Earn Your Leisure podcast. I know there's a lot of schooling and information, and a lot of formal stuff there. Could you tell us, coming from an educational background and you coming from a financial literacy background, I guess it only made sense to do a podcast and put it in this format to give it to the world. But would love to know more about the incredible podcast and your inspiration, and why you two decided to come together and, to give the world Earn Your Leisure.
Yeah, I think it started from social media, and I had developed a presence on social media. So I was going on different people's shows, local radio shows, public access shows, whatever, and I would take clips from that and put those on social media, and those became really popular. And people actually thought I already had a podcast, so they were asking me where could they listen to my podcast, and I didn't have a podcast. So I felt like it was just a natural progression to start a podcast, to expand on the conversations that was already being had on social media. So I asked Troy, who I speak to him every day anyway. So I felt like that would be a perfect partnership. My perfect partner starting a podcast would be him, since we already have the chemistry and we already speak all the time anyway. So that's kind of how the idea of the podcast came about. It was just a natural growth and progression that started from social media. It really started from social media, and then from social media it grew into the podcast.
Well, everyone loved it, obviously, or everyone loves you, and then everyone loves both of you now as podcasters together. And speaking you and Troy's relationship, you guys seem to have a seamless flow. It's like you're yin and the yang of like how you guys flow together. You're always upping the other and like in giving compliments and shining the light on the other, in addition to, you know, stuff that's a part of the EYL brand. Just would love to know, what is the secret sauce between the two?
I tell people, man, the secret sauce is developing a relationship with somebody over 25 years. And so we talked every day for pretty much 25 years. Like I said, when I needed somebody to teach financial literacy, it was a no-brainer. I called him. And when he wanted to create a podcast, it was like a natural, he was going to call me. In fact, when he was creating his social media campaign, he needed a hashtag. So that's where the name came about. I was like, I got a hashtag for you I think you should use. And he was like, what is it? And I was like, earn your leisure. You should use it. That's the hashtag. And so he was using it. And then he stopped for a little bit. And when we had to come up with a name for the podcast, it was like something that we already created. It was ours. And so that's how we got the name. But yeah, man, we pretty much see life in a very similar way. And we learn from each other. I remember when he first came into the classroom, I had to give him pointers on how to teach a classroom. But in the same point, he has a expertise in finance. And so while he's teaching finance, I'm learning from him. And so we bounce off each other like that, you know, like we're learning from each other on a daily basis, how to get better. Even now with networking and relationships, that's something that he was great at. I worked with 5-year-olds, right? And so networking with people is something that I have to get better at and learn. So it's just it's a natural blend that we have. Our families are close. You know, he's at my house all the time. So it's just one of those things that this has been my best friend and my brother for over 25 years. So I tell people if they want to duplicate it, they gotta put in 25 years. So
of course we know we have EYL the podcast, but there's so many other gems that's a part of the EYL world. Like the EYL University, it's featuring webinars with access to like industry experts and insiders on financial topics. Could you guys tell us more about that and, you know, what the drive behind it and how well it's going?
Yeah, EYL University, we have almost 10,000 students, and it's a subscription-based service. And we look at EYL University as like, earn your leisure is like public school. It's open for anybody, and that's on social media, on the podcast platforms, YouTube. We give daily information, and there's so much information. All of that information is free. But sometimes people need more of a handheld experience. So EYL University is our private school. So EYL University is an extension of the podcast, but more interactive, where we do Zoom calls once a week with different professionals, talk about everything from crypto to real estate to stocks. This is an opportunity for people to actually ask questions. The presenters have presentations. And then we have infinity groups inside of EYL University. So we really modeled it after a real school. So we have 20 infinity groups, everything from a crypto club, stock club, real estate club, people 50 and over, military club. So they actually meet every week, and they teach each other, and they bring different people on, and it's in a lot of like school spirit type situation. And then I do monthly financial planning calls, being that was my background already. And that's an opportunity for people to actually connect with me and ask me questions. And, you know, I sit down 2 hours on Zoom and break it down. And then one of our other partners does a real estate call every other week. Troy heads our book club. So, yeah, we really modeled it after a traditional school, but we took a untraditional approach, kind of what we have built our platform on, and that's EYL University in a nutshell.
It's really phenomenal how many tentacles it has, that you've grown it that quickly. Is that the similar spirit behind Invest Fest, which is sort of something you guys have built as a first of its kind in-person experience that I think is meant to combine investing, entrepreneurship, pop culture, entertainment, a little bit of everything. Is that the same idea? Yeah,
kind of. Invest Fest. So the in-person events was real big for us before Corona. Live podcasts, workshops. So, you know, being that, you know, our platform is different. It's built on education, not just entertainment. You know, we have more wiggle room when we do live shows. Like most podcasts, they do a live show. It's just a live podcast. But we can do seminars. We can do workshops. We can do a live podcast. And Invest Fest is going to be a combination of all of that. It's actually a festival, which we plan on having as an annual event. And it's going to be the Coachella of financial literacy, where, yeah, as you said, we have performances from some of the top artists, musical performances. We have panels. We're going to do a live podcast, most likely. We have keynote speakers, and then we're going to have a vendor marketplace. So really just modeling that after the festival feel, from Essence Fest to Coachella, Made in America, all of the top festivals that's already in existence. We're not really reinventing the wheel. The only thing that we're doing is we're just making it for business, finance, and investing. That's the main focus of it, with other elements sprinkled in.
Yeah, for many years, right? Like we hear stories. Obviously, we study business and we read it all the time. And you hear about these meetings where deals were struck at conventions, and whether it be Silicon Valley or Austin, Texas, and it was like we never knew that these meetings were happening or never got an invite to it. And so we very quickly said, rather than complain or try to figure out how we get to them, we'll create something of our own, and that becomes a place for our culture to combine and say, look, this is a place where we need to have venture capitalists. This is a place we need to have startups. This is a place if entertainers need to debut themselves. We want that InvestFest to become that.
When you guys are involved in this many different kinds of content, I want to sort of ask how and why podcasting might feel special or different, like what it's especially good at. Dolly and I clearly love this medium. This is what we do. But in the data, in how we see people listening to podcasts, we actually see in the data that there is something kind of special about podcasting. People listen longer, that they don't skip ads in podcasting. You see little bits of data here and there that basically translates into podcast listeners, podcast fans are more engaged than a lot of other media types. You really do literally and figuratively have their ear for that moment that you're talking to them. Do you guys feel the same, like Troy or Rashad, when you talk to people who you communicate with primarily maybe through the podcast? Is there something special about it?
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, it becomes the new medium for information. And so most people are turned away by watching the news. And if they're watching a certain network, there's only usually a one-sided opinion. And so, you know, when they listen to our podcast, it's something very direct. It's something that they can learn from. I think that's the most important thing. When you listen, there's always going to be a value add, right? Like we're learning as we're doing the interview, but the audience is also learning, right? And the most important thing is that they'll probably hear something that they can apply to their lives, or somebody around them can apply to their lives, and so it benefits them long term. Whereas if I just watch a piece of news, it's like, all right, well, I've been updated, and I'm not sure how that's going to impact me directly today. Whereas you hear an episode and you're like, I can do that, right? Because we really believe that, and in order for us to achieve things, we have to see them first. And so our job is to make sure that we can put as many different forms of success in front of our audience so they can just choose, right? It becomes a gumbo of success stories, and hopefully people can take something away from it and say, you know what, I can do that. I saw them do it, I can do it.
Have you seen real examples of this where you've seen kids a month later, a year later, 5 years later, where you're like, wow, they really got the lesson? Like it actually materially changed how they think about money, how they maybe even invest one day. That's got to be incredibly rewarding. But maybe talk to a specific example of where you were like, and that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, I'll give you a personal example. Our assistant, Abdullah, he lost his father at 16 years old. I offered him a job, and he told me no. And I knew the role that his father had played in his life because he was my student in my after-school program. And I told him, you don't have an option. You got to work for me. He now works for us at Earn Your Leisure. This year, he's become a partner in a vending machine business with us. And next week, he's closing on 2 homes. He's 23 years old, right? So since he was 16, he's been around us. And so we're seeing these things happen in real time. And so we know that there's a lot of responsibility that comes with the information we're given, but seeing people apply it is really the fuel to say, no, we got to keep going. There's so much more.
That's awesome. I love that. 23 years old and closing on 2 homes.
Yeah.
Take me back to 23 and take me all over again. But I want to, in that space, you know, you guys have so much influence on so many younger people and trying to figure out or just learn about financial literacy. In having a little bit of fun here, what advice would you give your younger self through all that you've learned over the time and amassed and information that you've gained? Like, what advice would you, for both of you, I'll start with you, Troy, what advice would you give your younger self today?
I would say learn every day, read every day, and trust yourself. I had started investing when I was 23 years old, and I was new to it, right? Like nobody was teaching me in my home. Like this was something that an adventure that I was going on by myself, and thankfully my friends were on it with me as well. But I didn't trust some of the decisions I was making, and it cost me financially. But I had to go through that so I could be a better investor today. And so I would say trust myself and try to learn every day.
I would say just to get started. That's the biggest mistake that I think people make, is that they just wait, they procrastinate. They, everybody has things that they spent money on that could have easily been invested, from clothes to travel to, we look back on it years later and it's like, in that moment, it seemed like it was very important, but it's really not. So I would say I would just tell myself just to get started at a much younger time frame, even if it wasn't with a lot of money. Something is better than nothing. So that would be probably the advice that I would give myself. If
I were some young kid looking to invest some money or trying to just flip something and make something shake and move, what advice, or what is the smartest thing I could do? Say if I came to you two and was like, I need advice on investing or doing something with $10,000, what would be the smartest thing that I could be able to do with that money that you guys would suggest?
The smartest thing that you should do is educate yourself first, because you could do a variety of different things. You can invest in stocks, you can do crypto, you can do real estate, but you're not really going to be successful in anything if you're not educated, and going off of what somebody else tells you is not research. That's a mistake that a lot of people make. So even with our platform, we always tell people we're here to just give you a springboard, but from here, this is just the beginning of your educational journey. You have to actually start to educate yourself. So of course, investing in like technology companies is always a good idea. Apple, Microsoft of the world, NVIDIA, PayPal, things of that nature. Investing in like an index fund, which gives you exposure to a variety of different stocks. Investing in ETFs, something that we talk about as well. Those are all easy ways where you can start investing into the stock market. But I would definitely advise anybody, but especially somebody that's just looking to get started, before you invest in anything, you want to be 100% confident that you are investing wisely. Because if not, then it's just kind of like gambling. When you invest in things that you don't fully understand, this is why, people invest in Dogecoin and things of that nature, because it's just hot on social media. They don't fully understand it. And then when they get in, it goes down right when they get in, and they lose money, and then they get discouraged and they don't invest anymore. So it's just very, very, especially now with social media, so many different stocks that go up every week and different cryptos that go up every week. So it's important to only invest in things that you fully understand, to invest in your education, and to have a good work ethic as far as understanding that investing is not easy. It's one of these things that takes time to master your craft. So even when you start, you're still going to be learning as you go, but you have to be willing to put in some work and to educate yourself.
1,000% educating yourself, because again, you can make money, but if you don't have any idea what to do with the money, you're probably going to lose it. It goes back to that same theory of when you don't know what to do, you do what you know, right? So like I could make it and I could also lose it. Yeah, and then I would also say just invest in the things that you're already paying for, right? So like if you have an iPhone, then you should probably be investing in Apple. We're talking on Zoom right now. Zoom, if that's part of your daily life, that'd probably be something you should invest in. And so we don't have to look too far to find the things we should invest in, because we're already giving money to these companies anyway.
And home is the Black Effect Podcast.
You don't say.
No, never heard of it. What? Who? Where? We're all a part of the iHeart family with the Black Effect Podcast Network. You guys jumped into this partnership, I think head first with Charlamagne and wanting to do this. Would love to know, like, what does it mean to be a part of the Black Effect? What does that mean to you guys? And, why were you so eager to jump into the partnership with Charlamagne and the Black Effect Podcast Network?
Yeah, I think, I spoke to Charlamagne a few months before we actually, joined. And he was just a very genuine person. Everybody that I spoke to previously, speaking to him, had only spoken highly of him. And he just struck me as somebody that was really down to help, and was, extremely humble person. So that was something that was definitely a major factor in us working with Black Effect, is, Charlamagne for sure. And then, of course, just, we respect the iHeart platform, everything that, it's built, its reach, And we just felt that it just really made sense to partner with iHeart and Black Effect to be part of family, help grow our brand, and we thought it would just be a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah, I mean the level of talent that's on the Black Effect, it only felt right that we should be a part of it. And so we listened to some of the podcasts that are on the network, and we admire a lot of them. And so we said, this is where we can fit. This could be our home. So we're very happy to be a part of it.
It's been amazing to partner with you guys on it. I mean, Dolly and Charlamagne have built this thing in short order here that's just a powerhouse. We're trying to keep up. And but you guys have just been honestly an incredible part of it. From day one, when Charlamagne would talk about what we were going to try to build here in the Black Effect, financial literacy as a way to empower the listeners that he wanted to reach was a core part of it, if not the core part of it. Before all else was like, look, we have to build something that teaches people about how to own their future a little bit, not just listen to a great show. We'll do a lot of that too, but this is about that other piece too. And I think for him, for us, you guys were just a key cornerstone in building that slate. So Troy, Rashad, cannot thank you guys enough for being partners, but also just hanging out with me and Dolly today and talking about this. It's been awesome.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And everybody, thanks for listening for another session of the iHeart Podcast Network Speaker Series. Be well, be safe. We will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Podversations is a production of iHeartRadio. You can find more from the biggest names in podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.